Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for January 31st through February 6th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 5 shows, I watched 3 movies, and I listened to 2 books. VaLITines also started this week, so today and every Sunday this month I will also be doing Twitter sprints for them. I also have a video upcoming, and this week I posted on their Instagram. The first book I finished this week was White Rabbit, and I did not want to put this book down. This is the book that I started while I was in my bath on Wednesday, because every Wednesday I have a book bath. That's a big thing with me. You might actually notice some changes on the channel to do with that. And if you like that art, be sure to check out my friend Peter, because he is very, very talented, and there's a link down below. In any case, this book starts right in the middle of the action and then doesn't let that action go away. Our protagonist is at a party, but his ex-boyfriend shows up and he doesn't really know how to deal with this situation, and then he gets a call from his half-sister, who he doesn't really talk to, they didn't grow up together, and she needs help, and it goes from there. And I don't want to tell you any other details because I went into this absolutely not knowing anything that was going to happen, and I literally couldn't put it down. I was in the bath for 5 hours and I was like, I don't want to get out of the bath because I want to keep reading, but also the bath water is super, super cold and it's past my bedtime, so I probably should. This one has a huge mystery element with a bunch of different people that could be the culprit, and it really lays down the red herrings very, very well in the middle of this situation where he's also having to deal with this ex-partner and trying to figure out what is happening in his sister's life. You also get to know his backstory and why he didn't grow up with his siblings and how one of his siblings is terrible. And all in all, I thoroughly enjoyed this thriller. The other book I read this week was Disability Visibility. This is a collection of different essays from different disabled people about their experiences in life. There was a variety of different lengths of essays, as well as experiences, as well as age, class, race, sexuality. This was very intersectional, and if you're only going to read one book about disability this year, this should be the one because it's covering the broadest range of experiences. There are also resources at the back of the book where you can find other disability books, be they fiction, non-fiction, poetry, all of that type of thing. It's all in there. It also recommends some podcasts, all of those types of things. So now I have more on my reading list, which is really exciting. The first show we watched was The History of Swear Words. This is a very short Netflix show. It's only 6 episodes and it goes over the big 6 swear words, if you will. I'm a fan of swearing. It's a great stress reliever. It's great to see these very intellectual academic people talking about swearing, and also these comedians just talking about what they think about specific words and how they use them, and it was enjoyable altogether. This week we also watched both seasons of Derry Girls. This takes place in Northern Ireland in the 90s, so it's during the Troubles, if you will, with a capital T, which when I moved to Ireland I had a guidebook that specifically told me not to ask anyone about religion or the Troubles, so I didn't. Each season of this show is only 6 episodes long because UK seasons tend to be 6 to 8 episodes depending on the show. And it follows these 4 girls from Derry and one of their English cousins as they just experience their life and get into some ridiculous shenanigans. Also, if you've recently watched Bridgerton and you really liked Penelope, she is also in this as a girl named Claire, and she's fantastic. She has a wonderful arc at one point that I very much enjoyed, especially because after that point everyone showed a visual representation of how much they supported her for the rest of the series, which was wonderful. I'm being purposely vague, but if you've seen it before, you probably noticed. In addition, I would just like to point out that that actress is 34 years old, which is mind-blowing to me. To catch up with what a lot of the internet has been talking about for the past month or so, I also watched all 5 episodes of WandaVision that are currently out. I am very glad that I waited to watch these. I watched the first 4 episodes in one go, and then on Friday I watched the 5th episode, and I'm glad because I enjoyed the first few episodes, but I was also just waiting to figure out what was going on, and I kind of, in my brain, came up with what I figured was going on, and I wasn't that far off, which is nice. But it was also nice to start it and have my theory confirmed all in one day. Obviously this is a Marvel show, so it has that going for it, but it's also heavily stylized based on every episode. It's set in a different decade so far, with the exception of episode 4, because that's a catch-up episode. It's very enjoyable so far. I'm interested to see where it's going to go. It also makes me want to rewatch all of the MCU because although I've seen, I'm pretty sure, all of it before, there are little bits and gaps in my memory of what is going on. So even though I knew that character that showed up in this episode, I had some questions. This week I watched the 4th episode of the 2nd season of RuPaul's Drag Race UK. What I can say about this episode is this elimination will go down in history because I don't think that anyone's ever done that before, and if they have, I completely forgot about it. What's also interesting is we know that in the next episode is when they had to shut down because of the current state of the world, so I'm interested to see how long the gap was between the 4th episode and the end bits of the 5th episode, because obviously I think that they probably had to shut down for quite some time. But I don't know yet. I'm gonna find out this week. This means I also watched the 6th episode of the 13th season of RuPaul's Drag Race, and I just love that I get 2 different seasons of Drag Race each week. At the very end, I really loved the attitude of the queen that went home and the fact that just showing up sometimes is winning for you, and I completely understand that mindset, especially with what she's been going through on the show and in life and that type of thing. So I would be interested to see her in All Stars if she is cast in an All Star season later in her life. February 2nd, of course, is Groundhog Day, so on February 2nd we watched Groundhog Day, because that's just what you do. If you've never seen this movie before, Bill Murray is cast as a weatherman who has to go to the town where they do the whole Groundhog Day celebration, and he is a grumpy man at the beginning of it, and then he predicts the weather, he does all of his thing, he needs to go home, he wakes up the next day, and it's Groundhog Day again, and it just keeps repeating the same day over and over and over hundreds upon hundreds of times until one day maybe he's gonna get out of it. Who knows? This was entertaining because obviously it's a weird thought experiment of what would you do if you just had to keep reliving the same day over and over again. He got to know the people in the town really, really well. He developed some skills. It's kind of relatable to anybody who has been living the same day over and over and over again in our current times. And it's obviously fun to revisit these movies that I haven't seen in quite some time. This week, because it was actually mentioned in Visibility Disability, I watched Hannah Gadsby's Nanette. Now, the way it was introduced in the essay that talked about it, I kind of knew what the twist of this comedy special was going to be, but that just made me want to watch it even more. Hannah Gadsby is an Australian lesbian comic, and this was a 1-hour, one-woman comedy special. If you don't want to be ruined for the twist of this one, just skip ahead to the next thing I'm going to talk about. Timestamps are always listed down below. But this one starts out talking about like the feedback she's gotten from different shows and that type of thing, and then swerves quite heavily into her trauma and how she thinks she might have to quit comedy because she hates having to make who she is the butt of the joke, and it gets much more intense from there. Trigger warnings for sexual assault and bigotry and homophobia and all of those types of things, but it was incredibly powerful. After finishing Nanette, I went back to the search page on my Netflix to see if she had any other specials, and she did. This one was called Douglas. I had actually seen some clips from this one before because my bestie has sent me little clips from it before, and I enjoyed the clips, but it was much more fun to watch all of those clips in the context of this show. This show starts out in such a brilliant way because she spends the first 13 or 14 minutes of this hour and 12-minute long special telling you exactly how the show is going to go and setting your expectations. She gives you the exact structural breakdown of what's going to happen, and just that in itself is so funny and brilliant, and I found it incredibly smart. I really, really enjoyed it. And then of course she actually starts the comedy special, and it is very, very funny. In my experience, it's not too often that you get a comic at the intersections of being a lesbian as well as being disabled, as well as having an art history degree, which comes up a lot in both of these shows, so I highly suggest watching them. The first audiobook I listened to this week was Of Fire and Stars by Audrey Coulthurst. This has been on my TBR for ages. All I really knew about it was about 2 princesses falling in love when one of them is supposed to be marrying the other one's brother. And I mean, yeah, that is a fair plot synopsis. That is a big portion of this book. It's also political because obviously when princesses marry princes, it's usually a political alliance thing as opposed to like a happily ever after, whatever, Disney representation type of thing. And it was interesting to see the different ways that people were treated based on which part of the kingdom or what kingdom they were from. In addition, this series, because this is the first in a duology, also has magic. So one of these princesses glasses, has magic but has been told all her life just to kind of tamp that down. Don't really let people know you have it because there are people in the world that really hate people that have magic. Anytime there's magic in a story but it has to be hidden, you know it's going to come out, but you still get this gut punch when it does. I'm looking forward to reading the conclusion of this duology during Demonathon, which is coming up next week. The other book I listened to this week was The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune, and I'm so happy that I listened to this one because the narrator did a fantastic job of representing the way the main character will just go off on a tangent and talk a mile a minute, and I very much enjoyed that. This book is about a guy who writes self-insert fan fiction about his favorite superhero. They call them Extraordinaries, but think superhero and you completely understand. There's one that is very popular in his city, and he's been writing this fanfic about this guy for so long. It's actually the biggest fic in the fandom. The clever thing about this book is it takes a protagonist and gives him everything he could possibly want, but doesn't make him any less awkward and teenage boyish and hormonal, and he's got family issues because his mother recently passed away, so he's just with his dad. He also has ADHD, so he's medicated for that. And he's constantly coming up with these harebrained schemes, and his friends are just constantly telling him, no, Nikki, no, and he's like, Nikki, yes, and every time that came up I laughed so hard. There were some excellent little twists to this because way before Nick understood what was going on, the reader understands what's going on and then understands a little bit more, and it's a little bit different than what the reader thinks it's going to be, and I just really very much enjoyed that. This is also the start of a series and the second one's not out yet, and I really want to read it like right now because this was so much fun. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that is down below, as well as the link to my PayPal and my Amazon wishlist in case you would like to buy me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!